Welcome to Transforming the Trades, the podcast where we empower you to take charge and innovate your business. Whether you're a plumber, electrician, or any other trade professional, this show is designed to give you the tools and strategies you need to succeed. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to take your business to the next level with Transforming the Trades. Hey, good morning, Cassandra. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Lynn. How about you?
Great. Thanks for jumping on today to talk to the trades about your company and the services that you offer. And I just want to do a shout out. And it was really great to meet you this past weekend at the E3 event in Huntington Beach, although I almost drowned. But yeah, not sunny California this past weekend, but it was really a pleasure to meet you and see you face to face.
I know. It was so great meeting you. I'm a hugger. So you know I had to give you a hug. You were like, what? I'm just meeting you.
Give me a hug. Me too. But it's always great when you get to meet, like, obviously we're going to do this podcast today, but it's really great when you have met somebody and you have met them face to face and you get their body language and all that good stuff. So, but I'm excited to have you talk about a very, I think, needed conversation with all businesses. But of course, our focus is going to be on the trades. You and I met through some of the interesting points you're going to make today about your reputation and reviews and such that are out there on the internet. And so that's why obviously we had this intersection. However, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to announce yourself. Who do you work for? And then let's just kick it in. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay.
Let's do it. Let's dive in. Well, first of all, Lynn, I really appreciate you having me on. I've been listening to Transforming the Trades for a while now, so it's a pleasure to be here. It was great to be able to see you in person, like you said. So my name is Cassandra Webster. I head up our home services division here at Consumer Fusion. So Consumer Fusion, we're an online reputation management company. So what that means is we really are passionate about enhancing the online reputations for businesses in the trades. That way, when potential customers are looking for their services online, they're going to show up more frequently. They're going to show up in a positive light. And that includes things like review generation, building up the volume of positive reviews, auto review responses. And we also specialize in negative review removal. So it's not something we're new at. We've been in business for 13 years now. And during that time, we've successfully removed hundreds of thousands of illegitimate negative reviews.
So Cassandra, I have to insert myself. You're the expert here. Been in business for many years, different types of businesses, of course, recently contractor in charge. Why does Google allow the public to make reviews that could potentially destroy a business? Why?
Yeah, so the thing about that is that when a lot of people don't realize that when they're signing up for a Google or a Yelp or a Facebook, there's a set of terms and conditions that they're signing off on. So these platforms like Google, Yelp, and Facebook, they have a set of terms and conditions. It's kind of like, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but I have an app on iPhone. And when I get those little iOS updates, there's a huge, lengthy set of terms and conditions. I've never read them once. So it's very similar when it comes to these review platforms that consumers don't realize if they're leaving a review that is in violation of those terms and conditions, it's grounds for you to be able to report that review to Google or this different review platforms out there and potentially have it removed. A lot of contractors don't realize that. They have these negative reviews and it's frustrating and it's emotional, especially when it's a situation where it's not a customer or it's a false narrative, but they don't realize that this is something that you can address head on.
Right. Well, I think the thing that is probably the most frustrating is that there are definitely businesses where they have had to go out of business because somebody has been maliciously giving them reviews. And so I guess if I had to, talk about this in the context, I think most of us have dealt with this or we've seen this type of action. Where's this going? Is anything going to change? Or is this going to be something that we're just going to have to deal with and suck it up?
That's a really great question, Lynn. When it comes to online reputation, it's not going anywhere. Your online reputation, it's everything. It's your brand. It is your word of mouth engine. And 90% of your consumers, they're looking at your reviews before they even pick up the phone and call that home service professional. So because it's such a critical piece of your digital footprint, it's not going anywhere. And if you think about it this way, let's say you're spending paid advertising. With paid advertising, a poor online reputation, it's going to affect your lead conversion. It's going to affect your overall advertising spend. And even with traditional methods like direct mail, if you have that consumer that got that coupon or that flyer in the mail, typically they're never going to call you first. They're still going to pull up their phones. They want to see what customers are saying about you, and they're going to base their decision on that. So if you don't have a solid online reputation strategy, it's going to affect your long-term business success and your growth potential. And as a business owner, you may not personally care about reviews, but the thing is your customers do. So if you have competitors that are putting more effort and more energy on that front, they're going to be taking that market share away from you. And it's not just your potential customers, it's Google also, because Google is looking very closely at your online reputation. In fact, Lynn, 34% of Google's algorithm is based upon your reviews. So they are looking at specific metrics where if you're not prioritizing these same metrics, it's doing your business a disservice. So just to go in a little bit into
Yeah, so where we're at. So where does your industry see this going? Is this going to change, escalate, separate? What's the outlook from the reputation industry? Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah. So when it comes to online reputation in the future state, it's going to continue to become increasingly important to have a positive reputation, but not just on Google. Of course, your online reputation is important when it comes to like those local map pack searches, but also when you think of some of these third party review sites, although Google is king, I also coach contractors that you want to show up positively wherever a potential consumer could be looking for you, and that includes Yelp, Facebook, those industry specific sites, because voice search, for instance, has become increasingly popular. And depending on the product, let's say it's an Amazon Alexa product or it's Apple. If that consumer is doing a voice search of, hey, show me the best plumber near me, Alexa, the businesses that show up, it's based upon your Yelp reviews. And also with Google now getting into generative AI and generative searches in the near future, it's going to be important not just how you're reflected on Google, but also there's the potential that they're going to be pulling in your Yelp reviews as well. So this is something that's not going away. It's just going to become increasingly important.
So why don't we talk a little bit about what's generative AI? Do we know what that means?
So generative AI would be like your chat GPT. I feel like AI is really just the buzzword of the moment. And really, when it comes to your online reputation, I would love, Lynn, for us to get into maybe what are some of the pillars that can help them with this increasing focus on online reputation and generative AI. Is that okay?
Sure. Let's do that. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So, some of the key pillars that you want to focus on when it comes to having a solid online reputation strategy, the first thing is going to be review generation. Having a consistent stream of positive reviews, it is critical to your business online. And one of the factors that I feel like is sometimes overlooked by home service businesses is the frequency of those reviews. Because I talk to businesses all the time where they'll say things like, I have a 4.8 or I have a 4.9 on Google, so I don't need to improve. But then I look at them online and their last review was 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 3 months ago. If that's you, you're doing your business a disservice because you're not giving Google anything new to consider. And not only that, your potential customers, if your reviews are more than a month old, they don't see your reviews as relevant. So it's going to help you if you're having a consistent flow of positive reviews, your overall rating. It's going to help you in also your local search results. But then also when it comes to, sometimes I get the question of, okay, what can I do to generate more positive reviews online? So a couple of tips that I'd like to share are, first of all, asking for reviews in person. It's great to have the automated follow-up when, the job is done, but the best performing businesses that I speak with, they have trained and incentivized their techs. That way, when the tech is in the home, they have a way to wrap up the call. they feel invested in building this positive culture. That way, they're that much more likely to ask for that positive review and maybe mention their name to that customer when they're wrapping up the call. So that's the first thing is you want to get your techs invested in building this positive culture, but then also that follow up is critical. You might have just provided the best service in the world, but if you're not following up with that customer via text or email, 70% of consumers, even though they had a positive experience, they're not going to leave you that review if you don't follow up and ask because they've already moved on to the next thing. So that's the first thing.
Sure. So as far as I guess Google obviously is king. Is that correct?
Yes, Google is king. It is the most utilized platform, but again, Lynn, I don't want contractors to focus only on Google. There's these other third-party review sites, your Yelp, your Facebook, the industry specific, Home Advisor and Nextdoor is rising in popularity. Angie's. It's about showing up positively wherever a potential customer might be looking for you. Because even if you're on Google and you're doing a very common local search like best plumber near me. Typically, you're going to find that Yelp is going to show up somewhere on the top of the fold on page one of Google. So it's important to make sure, hey, you're showing up positive on Yelp, on Facebook, on all these other third-party review sites, not just to focus only on Google alone.
Right. So give us a little bit of your background, Cassandra. I'd like for you to let the audience know your story, why you're in the home services industry. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, no, I love that. My story is pretty interesting. I got into home services kind of by accident. I was selling medical supplies at the time, and I was in a situation where I was looking for my next play. And I ended up working for a digital marketing company and selling to home service businesses. So I was selling SEO, PPC, websites to all, different verticals within home services. And that's where I ended up getting my love for the trades. I really loved these home service contractors that I was speaking with. I was there for a couple years doing that. And I left the industry for a little bit. I left for what I thought were greener pastures. I started working with a huge tech company. I was working with LinkedIn for about a year and a half. And although I'm thankful for, I had some great leadership, great team over there. But what I found was that I just wasn't a great fit for corporate tech. I really missed, when I thought back of where was I able to be my most genuine and authentic self, it was during my time when I was in home services. So I looked at, okay, how can I take what I've learned at LinkedIn, the processes and procedures that really help me grow and thrive, and take that back into home services? So happenstance, I ran into an old manager who was at Consumer Fusion, and I loved the culture over there. The tenure of our team, I was impressed with. Our average tenure is 8 years, which you don't typically see that for a tech company. And I saw the solution that we had in place and the fact that we're able to remove illegitimate negative reviews. And I saw an opportunity in home services to really penetrate the market with this solution that can help a lot of businesses that are struggling with online reputation.
Well, and I think this was kind of like icing on the cake for you, considering that you came from the digital marketing world. You knew the impacts of reviews on digital marketing. And so this was kind of like, this was a secret sauce piece that everybody has to connect to. Whether we want to or not, we have to connect to this if we want to be effective at doing what we are trying to do with our ad spend, right? And our marketing budget. So I think most of us, tell me if I'm wrong, we kind of learn it the hard way. So we learn it the hard way. We're not necessarily above the fold, as you all usually describe your appearance on a page, or you've had a bad experience with maybe employees rating your reviews, for example, and then you start seeking out expert advice. And what I hear you say is don't do that. Be proactive, have a strategy around your reputation management. It is the kissing cousin, or of course, a close neighbor to digital marketing. And it's essential for you to really be able to maximize your marketing and advertising spend. And so often, this industry, especially because it's so transaction driven off of advertising spend. That's what they focus on. They do focus on reviews, but I'm not so sure that everyone understands the relationship of reputation management to their digital marketing efforts. And so I feel like that is the real key message here that everybody has to embrace and understand and say, don't avoid it, embrace it, and make it part of your ongoing strategy for your business.
Exactly. Let your reputation do the work for you, but you have to be proactive. Like, even when it comes to, let's say, negative reviews, a lot of contractors see negative reviews and, they don't realize the impact that it has to their business. But what we know is that negative reviews, even just one negative review, can turn away up to 30 potential customers. So if you have multiple negative reviews, depending on what your average ticket is, that's quietly costing you tens of thousands of dollars. And what can you do about it? So let's talk about that, because when it comes to negative reviews, that's a huge headache to business owners that are trying to maintain a positive online reputation. And when it's a legitimate customer complaint, that's one thing. You definitely want to respond, because I see some situations where there's negative reviews, nobody's responded, and I just cringe, because it's critical that you respond. Because, first of all, you want to make that unhappy customer, you want to make them feel heard. You want to make them feel like you care and you're expressing that you want to rectify the situation. But then also, it's devaluing that review to the public. Because if I'm a potential customer and I'm looking at your reviews and I see a bunch of negatives and you're not responding, I'm going to think, wow, this business doesn't really care. I'm going to go on to a competitor that does care. So you want to respond, but you want to respond in a way that is empathetic, expresses understanding, shows that you want to rectify the situation. I see too often situations where the business is reacting with emotion. And I get it, because when you get a negative review, especially when it's somebody that's making false claims, that's frustrating. That boils your blood because you're putting everything into the business, but you still want to check that emotion at the door. You want to respond in a professional manner. And if you can't do that, totally fine. You need to delegate that task to somebody that can handle it, because you want to respond. So that's one thing, that's legitimate customer complaints. But then when it's an illegitimate negative review, that's a sort of trash that shouldn't be up there in the first place. So, a couple of examples of what I mean by that. And I know we've kind of talked about this in depth, Lynn, but some examples would be, let's say somebody didn't have a direct experience with you. The way that looks online is, my mother-in-law used XYZ HVAC. I was out of town while my wife handled XYZ plumbing and she was ripped off. Happens all the time. In those situations, that reviewer didn't have the direct experience with you. So that's violating the terms and conditions of Google. That's grounds for you to flag the review yourself and explain to Google or the review site how it violates the terms. Or you can partner with a company like Consumer Fusion that can handle that for you. Because there's a ton of online reputation management companies out there. There's no question about it. But often they tend to gloss over negative review removal because it's not a process you can automate. You can't implement AI or software to remove negative reviews, because it does require that human touch to go through that process, sometimes multiple times.
Sure. Well, but I think this is part of education, Cassandra, for the community that we're serving. And I know that certainly there are plenty of contractors out there that probably know and hold these pieces of information close to their business. But there's also lots of newcomers coming into the marketplace, as well as we've got those that are just beginning to build their business, and all the more reason to have a strategy early versus wait for when something happens, right? So that's kind of how I feel about it, is that we're very reactive, we're not proactive. And so my takeaway is, and this to me is part of the pivot for the industry, is because we have for many, many years been very reactive to much of what we are implementing in our businesses, whether it's something to drive revenue or change processes, is that we tend to be very reactive. And the message that I think goes along with Consumer Fusion is this is a proactive strategy for your future. And it's a good pivot point to start thinking about this type of strategy in your business on a proactive basis versus stop and you got to start over because you've just had something happen that's a bad review, right? Well, listen, let's make sure everybody knows where to contact you. So go ahead. Let's get your information out there. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So you can get a hold of me a couple different ways. Email, I'm at Cassandra@consumerfusion.com. You can also call me or text me directly. I'm super responsive. So I'm at 661-310-1430 is my direct line. I'm also on LinkedIn and heavy on social. So you can always just look me up, Cassandra Webster, and then you'll see that I'm with Consumer Fusion. And then if you want to check out more and learn about our services and how we help businesses in the trades, you can check out our website as well. We're at consumerfusion.com.
Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Lynn. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you for tuning in to Transforming the Trades. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights and tips for your trade business. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to check out our website where you can find additional resources and information to help you grow your business. Until next time, keep innovating and take charge of your success.